everybody, welcome to Board Game Breakfast. Welcome to another week of February, which is very, very cold for most of you, but hopefully we're here to warm you up with some breakfast talking about board games and the like. Hey, Dice Tower West is coming up in a few weeks, so some of you are coming to that, so we look forward to seeing you not too far away, so that's exciting. Other than that, though, it's kind of a lot of different things, reviews and such coming out from the Dice Tower this week. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I do want to mention, some of you have said, where's the news? Well, our news now comes out on our Thursday Board Game Breakfast. So keep an eye out for that. It's still the same news, except we have commentary from the folks who are with me at that point in time. So all our news, Kickstarter news and stuff, is on our Thursday Breakfast. Alrighty. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the internet. Okay, so first of all, I found the game archive of Vives University, this is in Bruges, is looking for volunteers for board games. Not to play them, but to inventory them. So to go in, make sure all the pieces are there. Now, we're not talking about these board games. We're talking about older ones from 1810 to 1940, that time period. And they have thousands and thousands of games. It's kind of a neat thing. So if you're interested in that or just want to read about the library itself, check out the link. By the way, all the links for the things I'm talking about are in the description of the video. Baylor has an article that says playing games releases, scientists have said playing games as a couple releases oxytocin, the hugging hormone. But they also pointed out that painting does so even more. So if you're painting miniatures together as a couple, who knows? I don't know if any of this stuff is there, but it's there. There's a geek list on Board Game Geek that I found interesting. It's bittersweet memories. This sort of thing I find kind of fascinating, to talk about memories that you have, which aren't the best memories, but they're strong memories. And I really, not that I enjoy reading it, but it's almost, I get a bit of, I get the vibe of what they're talking about. Tabletop Tribe put up 12 tabletop life hacks. Now, most of these life hacks I already knew, but the first one I thought was a cool idea, using a wine rack to store the rolled up play mats for games. That's a neat idea. So if you're looking for ideas and things like that, you can definitely check out that. Take Your Chits did a video about hobby board game pickup lines. They did this for February 14th, and before you get upset or offended, it's all a joke, but it is a funny one, I thought. James Hudson did a live stream where he kind of opened up a little bit about what it's like behind the scenes and running Kickstarters and things like that. So a lot of times people on Kickstarter, he's run some very, very successful Kickstarters, so if you want to learn more about that, check it out. And finally, the Idaho Statesman had a long article talking about Ninja Division. It's not a very positive article. Ninja Division apparently has been late on many of their Kickstarters or hasn't fulfilled many of them, and there's a lot of backers who are upset, and there's millions of dollars involved. And so this has now become a news story as the backers in Ninja Division trying to get these games out to people. Who knows what's happening here, where the end result of this is going to be, but it's interesting to see Kickstarter making the press in this way, which is not a very positive way. So those are the links that I found on the internet this week. You got something interesting you want me to check out? Email me at tom@dicetower.com.
What's up, everyone? It's Danny, and welcome to Tabletop Twitter Talk, a segment where I cover some conversations happening between our community of board game and tabletop gamers on Twitter. For this week's poll, I asked, what type of converted tabletop gamer are you? Meaning, what was your nerddom before you started playing board games? The 4 categories I included were video gamer to board games, tabletop RPGs to board games, a casual gamer turned to hobby gaming, or a board gamer that led to other gaming. 243 people answered, and the majority, by almost half, said that they were video gamers. 28% were casual game converts, 14% were tabletop RPG players, and for 9%, board games led them into other types of gaming and nerddoms. Let's see some of the replies from our Twitter community. Matt Ware made a very good point asking where the Magic the Gathering to board gaming option was, and that's something I totally forgot because I know a lot of TCGs do share the same table space within friendly local gaming stores as board gaming. Robert said that he actually went from video gaming to Magic to board games to D&D. The Not Suitable for Worker Placement podcast said that they played video games first and then went to tabletop RPGs and then to board games. And Kev Meeple said that their first modern board game was Pandemic and that they used to play video games alone but wanted to share a hobby with the wife. And the rest was history. A good handful of people brought it back to their childhood. For example, Chris Rogers saying that he grew up on Hasbro and Milton Bradley oldies like Sorry or Monopoly, and Jay from 3 Minute Board Games had the same casual experience, since he was a kid about age 10. Anna Marie kind of had a flip-flop situation where they started off with old school board games, then went to video games, then back to board games, and then back to video games, and now they do both, trying to balance it all out. And I think Karen said it best that their nerddom is like the blob. It just absorbs and grows things. Typical games in the 60s to 70s, to comics, to Avalon Hill, to different PC games, and now hobby games. So how about you? Were you converted by any other type of gaming, or have you always played board games? Leave a comment below or feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. Remember, I put a poll out every week, so feel free to join the conversation with our amazing board gaming and tabletop community. Thanks for tuning in to Tabletop Twitter Talk. I'll see you guys next week.
Hey there everyone, it's Jen the Board Game Librarian, and Aslan the Board Game Cat, I guess. He must be famous too. Flipping some pages and pushing some cubes. This week's segment, From the Page to the Table. This week I am looking at a book that I've just recently finished, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So this book takes the Iliad and focuses on a slightly minor character from the story, Patroclus. Patroclus, in many different versions, was Achilles' cousin, younger cousin, all different variations on that. And it shows the Iliad and Achilles from his perspective. It's a very interesting book because of that reason, because we have all these other different books which are focused on Odysseus or Achilles. We get medical things that Patroclus was in charge of, and a side of the Trojan War that we don't often get to see. There's a lot of interplay between the gods and the fates as well. So going by that, I paired it this week with Agamemnon, a game by Osprey Games, 2 players. It's a deeply abstract game, but it is also about the Trojan War. One side of the board does deal with the loom and the 3 fates, which shows up quite a bit in this book. Achilles is a main character in Agamemnon, and among the things that you're trying to do are collect strands of fates from different areas. Either from leadership, from military, or having the longest chain. So it's a very interesting game that I don't feel like gets a lot of love. But we play this quite frequently, and once you get going, it's fairly easy to play. I'm terrible at it though, but it's a great pair, I think. That's all for this week. Happy breakfast. Bye everyone.
Hey folks, welcome back to another Just Missed It episode here on Board Game Breakfast. This is actually the first time I've done it here on Board Game Breakfast. Used to do this all the time, frequently on Token Punch Lunch, but here it's the first time I've done it, and basically this is a segment where I'm going to talk about a game that just missed the mark of greatness, or some other thing that it just missed the mark on. Maybe I still really enjoy the game, but one little aspect of it is just missing a really full enjoyment of it. So today we're going to be taking a look at this little game right here. Now, I just recently reviewed Fleecing Olympus. I did make a mistake in the rules section of it. I apologize. I'll correct it here. But anyway, let's get down to the table. I'll give you a really brief synopsis of it, and then we'll talk about why you just missed it. So in Fleecing Olympus, basically everybody's going to have their own little player shield here, and behind that shield they're going to start with 20 of these gems. And the whole point of the game is to have the most gems at the end of the game, and by doing that you're going to be rolling these dice and targeting other people with wagers, trying to take some of their gems and put them behind your screen, and so forth and so on. Now the game is going to run through the deck once or twice, depending on how many players you have. And basically what you have here is you have a God card that is going to be your special ability in the game. You have a odd side, and then you also have an even side, and both of those powers are different. On your turn, you're going to choose which side of these you're going to roll, or you're going to go for. So if it's an odd, you'll take this token here and flip it over to its odd side, and then you're going to roll the dice. Well, before you roll the dice, you're going to target somebody and choose them to be the person that you're wagering with. So then you roll the dice. Okay, so it's we've chosen odd. So is this odd? No, it isn't. So that means that the target is actually going to be paid money by you as long as nothing ever changes. Well, how much money is going to be paid? Well, if it's the target that's owed the money, and it's the lower die of the two, and that's how much? 4 gems. If you specifically, for example, if we did the even side of it, this is an even number, so now the target owes you the money, so you would take the higher amount of the money, and then if it's even, then it's even. It's just the 4 gems that are owed. Then you're going to go through a time where you play special cards, and there's a number of different rules that talk about how you can play the cards and what the cards do and all of this other kind of stuff. But you're going to be playing these cards, trying to raise the amount of the wager that's going to be, maybe even changing the target of the wager. A number of different things can be played with this cards. And then once everybody decides to, or whoever has the judgment token decides that the round is over of playing cards, then the wager is paid, whoever owns it, and we go on to another round. It's a really fun game, but there's one thing that just made it miss the mark for me, and let's talk about that. So the one thing that really just made it miss the mark from being just a game that I really enjoy is that card play section after the wager has been set and we know how much is owed by whom, and so forth and so on. Now, negotiation is really where it falls. You have to negotiate what card am I... Can you help me? Help me play that card that you have that I know you have, well, that I think you have, and help me not have to pay this wager or something to that effect. You know, those kinds of negotiations. Well, if you play this now, I'll play this later. And that's the kind of stuff that the game really kind of desires for you to do in order to play that section well. But the problem is that there isn't a whole lot of rules in the rule book that really govern how cards can be played, when they can be played, when they, and all this kind of stuff. It's just a little bit too loosey-goosey for me. There are some rules in there that govern it, but not enough for my specific tastes. And I just felt like it was a little bit too chaotic, a little bit too argument-inducing more than fun. And so that's why it just missed the mark. If that doesn't bother you, if you like that kind of chaos-filled playing cards and carrying them out and all this other kind of stuff, and well, then give this one a look because it's right down your alley. But for me, it just missed the mark of being a great game because of that one little thing. I think it's a great, fun game, but it could have been even better if there had been a little bit more government in that last section of playing cards. So that's it for me. Thanks for joining us. Let's get back to the rest of your breakfast.
So what's coming from the Dice Tower this week? Well, of course, our live stuff is going up as normal. We'll be going through Live Board Game Breakfast, I already mentioned, on Thursday. A Q&A today at 10 a.m. We got, what's else coming out this week? Well, Wednesday is our Kickstarter crowd surfing show where we talk about the different things that are going on in Kickstarter. And so keep an eye out for the different live events that we have. Back Talk this week will actually be just Sam and Z going back and forth, so you can see them there. I'll be reviewing God's Forge, a little game called Flipside, Villagers, the Feast for Odin expansion, and another game gets the dreaded 1 out of 10 rating from me. You'll have to come and see that this week. We'll also be talking about our top 10 themeless games. Not abstract strategy games, but games with a pasted-on theme that we enjoy, even though there's a lack of theme in them. So that's all the stuff that we're going to be doing this week. And of course, the podcast, me and Eric are putting out our top 10 games to start with the letter A, which is not, you might be like, what a weird top 10. It actually brings out some interesting things, and there's a lot of other cool things in that episode that's going up this Tuesday. All right, let's keep moving.
Hi, Mike Licio from Solomode Games. Recently on the Facebook group for our Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan podcast, now a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, someone was asking about teaching games. He was mentioning that he didn't necessarily like when someone taught him a game as if he was a child, perhaps. And he was asking, how can you teach seasoned gamers in such a way that they don't feel maybe patronized? And Internet Titan Dan Hughes came along and he said that he didn't like a situation where it was kind of a teach as you go either. He wants to be taught all the rules right at the beginning, and that way he at least has a chance to play as optimally as he can. I kind of wavered on this. I, generally speaking, do want to be taught as much of the game as I can to feel like I've got an understanding of all the main mechanics, but I don't necessarily feel like all of the edge cases and things like that have to be played out at the very beginning or explained, because sometimes these games are incredibly complex. I can take Lisboa as an example. It took about 45 minutes for someone to teach me Lisboa, and at the end of it, they handed me the 6-page player aid. That was intense. Do I necessarily feel like I needed to know all those things before the game started? I don't know. I didn't play very well, I can tell you that, but I don't know that I would have played much better if some of those rules had been scaled back a little bit at the beginning. I do know I would have had about an hour of my life back. So it's tough. I think for me, it depends on the game. If it's a relatively simple game that can be taught within 20 minutes or so, sure, I'd like to know everything right up front. At least feel like I've got a pretty good chance of playing as optimally as I can. If it's a really heavy, complex game, maybe give me enough to let me get going. I'm going to look at it as a learning game anyway. I'm not going to fret too much if I play poorly, and let's get playing. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. If you can let me know in the comments below, I'd be very appreciative. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
Hi, welcome to Board Game Opinions. I'm Steve.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Amy.
I'm Mark.
And we have our third speed quiz. Again, you can join in at home if you'd like to. Mark won the first one, Jonathan won the second one. Let's see if Amy can win this one. Mark's going to go first. But the category this time is I looked for the games on Board Game Geek that can be classified as either abstract or abstract strategy. They appear in one of those two lists. And we're looking for the top 27 according to the rankings from today. So we're looking for up to the 605th game on Board Game Geek. We're going to start with Mark. We're going to see how many they got. But again, Matt had a go at the cafe. He gets some. If you get one of those guys, you get a point. If you get one he didn't get, you get 2 points. Mark, off you go.
Yinch.
Yinch is 1 point.
Devon.
Is 1 point for Jonathan.
Abalone.
Abalone is not there.
Tsar.
Tsar is another point for Mark.
Blockers.
Is there. That is 2 points for Jonathan. Ooh.
Camisado.
Camisado is not there, I'm afraid.
Blockers 3D.
He's not there.
No. Chess.
Chess is a point for Jonathan.
Yeah.
Colour chess.
Colour chess is not there.
Santorini.
Santorini is 2 points for Mark.
That's a good one.
I'm going to open it up to the floor. You can guess at any point now.
Checkers.
He's not there.
Othello.
Othello is not there.
I can't get any.
Hanabi.
He's not
Abstract
there.
strategy.
No, I think this thing.
Dimension.
Dimension's not there, I'm afraid.
Heil.
Heil, INGB, no, it's a great game. You should try it. But it's not there.
Ingenious.
Ingenious is there. It's worth 2 points.
Ooh. Have we done all the GIFs? Or GIF? Is GIF one?
It's not good enough.
Oh.
There is another GIF.
Crocodile.
Crocodile is not abstract.
Yinch. Should we said Yinch?
Yeah, Yinch has been said.
Devon. Tsar.
I never remember all of them.
That's the good ones, isn't it?
There's two I don't know, so you probably haven't played them.
Oh.
3,
That's it.
2, 1, and stop. They missed some ones there that you could have got at home. We'll check those in a sec. I'm just going to top the scores and see who's won. So you saw the running scores as we were going, but in this case, Amy didn't get any right, I'm afraid. She got as close in the second sec. Mark got 4, and Jonathan wins this one with 6 to take a 2-1 lead. Some of the games you could have got that would score you a point. You could have had Azul, Go.
Go.
Patchwork is a game that has theme but is clearly an abstract.
Yeah.
You could have Sagrada, Ricochet Robots, or even my favourite game of all time, Bridge. It's counted as an abstract game.
Really?
I was all surprised in the toss.
There is no themes there. Well, cribbage is there. You could have had cribbage.
Oh.
I guess
2 points.
most of them aren't high enough in the
Yeah,
list.
you could have had some of the other 2 pointers there. Onitama, Hive, Photosynthesis, and The Duke. So well done if you got any of those at home. Did you beat Jonathan's score of 6?
Probably.
If you want another go, watch out for our next speed quiz. We'll have another category for you to join in there. But we've been Board Game Opinions. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Happy breakfast, everybody. Today I'm not going to talk about theme, I'm going to talk about why Tom is wrong. Now, he recently said that he gets excited when a game has a good insert. And I don't think it's a bad thing for a game, but there's a bit of a pattern with my preference of games that seems to very much contradict that. And that between two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, My Little Scythe, and also Grim Forest, I nearly forgot that one, I actually found that the inserts were really good. To an extent. Alright, they make all the components fit in the box quite nicely, and that is a really good thing. But I think sometimes the fiddliness of putting all of these things away, actually, rather than just putting them in bags and everyone diving in setup, it doesn't always necessarily improve the game. And these three in question, I've actually found to be a bit meh. I think between two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, it took too long, especially the scoring. Didn't really enjoy it too much, and even though there's like a 2-player variant, I really wouldn't bother with that. Grim Forest, I think the fact that you're not making a straw, a brick and a wood house, you can build 3 of any kind of destroyed it for me, and I wasn't captivated by the game. And yeah, I think My Little Scythe was maybe just too easy. It was maybe really good for kids, and it's good for maybe people coming into the hobby. But now I've played it a few more times, it's really lost its shine, although the gems are amazing. The inserts on all of them are great, but the game needs to be good first. So it's not something that gets me excited, and often if I see it's got game trays included, I'm worried that they're focusing more on the presentation of the box than the game itself. Anyway, let me know if you think I'm wrong or if you agree that Tom's wrong. And I'm Oliver East, signing out.
All right, folks, let's see what's in the library, going into the library this week. Called the Bonargo Bay. I've already added this one to the library, but I have added a ton of Kickstarter stuff and extra things that are going to be going into it, so that it's like a really cool game. The 3 new Unlock adventures are going in the library. The nice thing about Unlock is the fact that, you can keep replaying them. So that's a neat thing. Space Base is going in the library along with the new expansion Fort Shai Pudo. Still trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have 2 copies of Space Base in the library, and one will have Shai Pudo included with it. Then we're putting in the Rise of Moloch here. This is kind of a big miniature style game. And then Merlin is getting thrown into the library along with its expansion. Merlin was one of the games I needed to get in the library, so I'm glad to put these in. And that's what's getting added to the library this week.
Hi folks, my name's Andy and welcome to Potable Gaming. What is Potable Gaming, you ask? Simple. We all like playing board games. Most of the time we play those in the house, but sometimes you want to go outside and play those games, and that's what I do. I spend my time in pubs or cafes having a nice drink with my friends playing games. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, not every game you talk about here is a travel game, that's the obvious answer. Sometimes travel games have too big a footprint for a public table. Sometimes bigger box games have a better footprint for a table than you realise, and that's what I want to talk about. But today I'm going to go for a pretty easy option and go for possibly one of the best travel games you can get, as well as a great pub game, and that is Hive Pocket. So Hive Pocket is very simple. You and your opponent both control a set of tiles. Each of these tiles have different insects on them. And on your turn, you either place a tile or you move a tile. Each tile moves in its own special, unique way. And your aim is to try and cover your opponent's queen by surrounding them by all different pieces. And this is fantastic. It's very much like chess. It's a very quick or very long game, depending on how you're playing it with your opponent. It's very tactical. And due to the different nature, the fact you build up the board as you play, means you can have a completely different game every time. I've played 5 games in a row, and not one of them has been the same as the previous game. And in terms of portability, this is fantastic. These tiles are hard wearing. They are pretty much waterproof. They are kind of windproof. Like, I wouldn't put them in a gale, but I've played outside in windy conditions and these haven't moved. They are sunproof. They'll play on pretty much any surface, and in fact it's one of the few games where the more unique and more wonderful your surface, the more interesting your game. I keep planning to maybe put a random obstacle in the play area to try and make this a more interesting game. Honestly, I think it's one of the best two-player games you can get, one of the best travel games, and it's one of the first games I thought I should cover on this. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I'm Andy, and pretty sure it's your round.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris, and this is the Teacher's Lounge. This is a segment where I go over teaching recommendations for board games. I've been thinking about times that I've blown it as a game teacher, where I maybe was able to teach all of the mechanisms perfectly sound and the interactions and even who the start player is and all these different things. I teach it so well, and yet at the end of that rules explanation, I hear the person that I'm teaching it to say, "So, how do I win?" I found it just always a good recommendation to start with what the objective of the game is first. Now, this might not sound like it's as important when you're playing a game where its most points is the winner, but even that is a good starting off point. And I do think that other games that have different types of objectives, especially a lot of cooperative games, where the goal is to do something unique and different. It's not about points. It's not about being the last player standing or these concepts that a lot of people maybe are familiar with, but curing for different diseases. That's different. Almost everyone I've taught Pandemic to at one point or other asks, is the point of the game to get rid of all the disease cubes? And so I try and explain as early as possible, nope, we're trying to cure them through this card process, or in the dice version, the dice process. And it lets people get into the zone, the auto zone. Nope, not what I meant. Sorry, years of conditioning from TV. What I mean to say is they get into the zone where they're focusing on, hey, this is the objective that I'm working towards, and now every other thing that you teach in that rules explanation is working towards that original goal that you laid out from the beginning. That's something that I love doing. Hope that's a good teaching recommendation. If you've got suggestions, if you've got comments or anything, I'll be responding below under the name Meeple Overboard, the podcast that my wife and I do together, and so hope to see you in the comments. My name is Chris, signing off with no cool catchphrase.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Serious Top 7s, because we all know that 8 through 10 is just filler anyway. I'm Z Garcia, I'm still bald, and today we're going to be taking a look at soul-crushing game pairings for all your get-togethers and gaming shenanigans. Here we go. First up, Rising Sun, where your honor is paramount, followed by Tsukuyumi, Full Moon Down, where the moon literally crashes into the earth, obliterating, I can only assume, just about everyone and their honor. Get together with that special someone for Fog of Love, a sweet and heartwarming game. Then keep that temperature going up with the heart nuking This War of Mine. Tonight we're tackling a double feature at the same time, stopping a madman from stealing priceless artifacts in Professor Evil and the Citadel of Time stories. Every time you're about to get your hands on one of those juicy, stolen artifacts, you zip right back to the window you crawled in from and start all over again. This one you can do as a contest among friends. Everyone get together, play Above and Below, and whoever wins takes home a copy of Welcome to Centerville. Tonight you thought we were going to be playing Captain Sonar, frolicking in the depths, looking for other submarines. Instead, we're playing Saltlands, hanging out on the bottom of a dried up ocean, being chased by marauders who want to eat your face. Ooh, you brought Attack of the Jelly Monster. That's nice. I'm not really playing that, though. Why? Too many bones. And finally, One for the Children. What game are we playing tonight? 1 to 9. Your objective? Raise to 10. And that's going to do it for our list today. Don't forget, there's no good reason to not play board games and crush souls at the same time. If that involves dusty Cheetos, all the better. Have a good one.
So are board games going to hit the big time? It's kind of an interesting thing. You know, we talked earlier in the links how Ninja Division and their lack of fulfilling a Kickstarter hit the news. And we see board games hit the news every once in a while. There was a website, Purple Pawn, that did news stories on board games. And it usually seemed back in the day that most of the stories that were hitting the internet about news was someone stabbed someone else over a game of Monopoly. Or there was a domestic disturbance or whatever. That's not really big national news. Big national news is, hey, Catan is being made into a movie. Hey, the Green Bay Packers are playing Catan. Hey, did you know there's board games out there? Now, whenever these things happen, whenever there's these big news stories out there, we get kind of irritated when they talk about games because we're like, they're barely scratching the surface of what's actually out there. Or they're making us look like, it often, whenever I see a big news story or something on Gen Con, for example, it always seems like they focus on, look, there's people cosplaying at Gen Con. Well, that's true. And that's cool. I don't even have a problem with people cosplaying. But it seems like they focus on that and don't focus on the fact that, hey, there's families coming together. And even, news stories, I always read, like in my local newspaper or things, all kinds of weird things. Look at this person's sewing group, or this and that, or look at this fishing thing. And I think, I wonder if we should call the newspaper and be like, hey, we get together and play board games. And that does happen occasionally. Someone playing board games makes it to the newspaper. And I always think that's an awesome thing. I always am like, yeah, that's cool. And you might say, well, they missed these facts and this facts. But the fact is, I think publicity is a good thing in general. And I'm always super pleased to see how the board game hobby is growing. Now, as it goes, and when these big name people come in and they talk about board games, of course it's not going to be always the nitty-gritty things. But that would be the same way. If you want to talk to me about sports ball, I got a cursory overview. I know that there is Major League Baseball that's split into the American League and the National League, and I know the teams on it, and then you start asking me what players and what teams. I know a lot more about baseball than I know about other sports, too. I know what the an ERA stands for, and, the batting averages and what's a good batting average and not, because I've looked a lot into sports. But if you ask me about hockey or football, I would be like, well, I know kind of the basics. And that's the way the media is going to be about board games. And I think that if we do a disservice if we get upset about that. We should just be thrilled that there's anything. You say, but yeah, this article was kind of a negative one. Yeah, most of the time they're not, though. Most of the time they're positive. And they may push games and you're like, oh, those games aren't really what the games that I would want people to check out. But here's the deal. If people go check out that game and you're like, I don't know. Let's say, for example, Munchkin. I'm not a huge fan of Munchkin. But if a newspaper tells people to go play Munchkin, I'm glad. Because when they go play Munchkin, where are they going to find Munchkin? Well, when they go look for it, they might find another game that they like. And they might find something that they would like to play with me. Or maybe they'll be happy for playing Munchkin. And I should be pleased about that. So I think when we see the mainstream media pick up and talk about board games, it's a good thing. Not maybe in the story of the Kickstarter and the negativity about Kickstarter, but even then, that still talks about what these things are and brings it out to the forefront. And the more we see this, the more accepted it will be for me to get together with some guys and girls and play board games. And I like that.
What's up, Internet? My name is Michael Cook. This is Board Game Evangelism, and we're here to spread the good news of face-to-face fun. Last week, we took a look at Blood Rage from the drafting perspective to help a new gamer get ready for Blood Rage. Today, we're going to take a look at Area Control. And the number one game that'll probably come to most non-gamers' mind when you think about an Area Control game will be Risk, which is difficult because a lot of times they have a negative view of Risk because it takes a long time. And a lot of board gamers have a negative view of Risk because of the roll to resolve. The most natural progression that you're probably already thinking of is going to be Small World. This game is very similar to Risk. I think it fixes Risk. It has different races and traits that give special abilities and different ways to score points, and also you don't need to conquer the world, and it doesn't take forever. It has a set number of rounds. So I think this is a really good progression from Risk. Now, if you want to layer in a little bit of drafting, a good light version of that is going to be Lotus. Lotus, you want to score points not only by controlling a flower by having the most presence of either bugs or most cards played into it, but you also score points by closing the flower. So it adds a different layer of trying to figure out the timing of, do I want to close the flower or do I want to try and add to my strength in that flower, which is beneficial, and also timing when you're going to get special abilities, or are you. So I think that's a great progression, and I think the most natural progression before getting to Blood Rage is going to be Ethnos. Ethnos has a little bit of that drafting, pulling from the center of the available cards that have been discarded. And also you're going to score points not only by whether you have the most presence in each of the regions at the end of an age, but also you're going to score points based off of the different races and their abilities, and just how many cards you're going to put out at once. So there's more than one way to score points. It's not all about having the largest presence, which is a lot like Blood Rage. Let me know in the comments section below if you know of any area control games that I completely whiffed on. And next week we'll be talking about action point allowance system games so that we can put action point allowance, area control, and drafting together so that a new gamer might not be overwhelmed by Blood Rage. If you like what you see, you can follow me online at Macronova Games on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And enjoy the rest of your breakfast.
This is Roy Kenney, and this is Printed Pieces, where we talk about 3D printing and what it can bring to the board gaming hobby. Today I want to talk all about the cost of 3D printing. So there are a lot of different things that can go into cost, but when I first started, I was a lot less expensive than I actually thought it was going to be. I searched around for a bunch of different printers, and you can buy printers that are easily in the thousands of dollars to ones that are way more affordable than that. And the one I ended up going with was because there was a ton of reviews of how it was a really good printer, but the cost wasn't very high at all. And everybody was amazed at how good of prints that this $200 machine could make. The other thing that adds to the cost of a printer will be how much filament costs, which is the basically like plastic tube that you use to go into the printer. So basically you have your filament, and these can range anywhere from like $16 to around like $25, $30, depending on what brand you get and like what it is, because they have all sorts of like crazy different types of filaments and things like that that you can use in your printer. The brand I use is this one, and it only costs like $17, and you can find it on Amazon and things like that. But if you kind of compare like the prices on different things, you can kind of figure out how much a model costs to print. So I ended up printing out some awesome virus cubes for Pandemic, and they really add to like the theme and the feel of the game. And I wanted to figure out how much these cubes cost. So basically you can do just a little bit of math. In your slicer, it shows the amount of grams that your project uses. And you can basically take those grams and divide it by 1,000, because your rolls of filament are going to have like 1,000 on it, and then times it by the price of your filament, and therefore you'll get a price that's very close to what it would actually cost, or how much filament you're actually using. And so like these Pandemic cubes, like the entire set to print out ended up costing like $1 worth of plastic. Let me know in the comments down below what you've been 3D printing, if you have a 3D printer, or what you'd love to see 3D printed. So on the next Print Pieces, I'll see you then.
Hey guys, Joe here. On this episode of Worker Placement Weekly, I'm going to show everyone a small but portable worker placement game. It's easy to teach, plays with 2 players, and in my opinion kind of flew under the radar. I'm talking about Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. Alright guys, here it is, Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. Here is the setup for, it's again a 2-player worker placement game. Here is the main player board. This is where you're going to be sending out your workers to talk to and investigate these cast of characters. The theme behind the game is there was a bombing at the House of Parliament, and so you're sending out these workers to investigate these characters. So what you do on your turn, you're going to take one of your meeples and you'll place them on to one of the character cards out here, and you'll gain the benefits that's shown below. You're gaining investigation tokens to then collect these clue cards. And again, it's a set collection game, so whoever has the best sets of cards, or the most sets, or the most victory points, is going to win the game. And the game lasts 7 days, or 7 rounds. And then a cool aspect of the game is the characters, the cast of characters will change position within every time you play the game. So the next day, you'll flip over a card from the stack, and you'll put it on the next day. And then again, over the course of 7 days, the way the characters come out is always going to be different, etc. And so another cool aspect is that when 2 meeples of each player get placed on the card, at the end of the round, the character that the investigators went to talk to is exhausted or either flees the scene, and so you flip the card upside down, and it shows that, again, the character either left the scene, is too tired to talk to you guys, and so for the next round, that player cannot be used. And then the round after that, you'll flip the character over, and again, he's free to talk to. So I think that's a pretty cool little mechanic in the game. And so again, you're going to play 7 rounds, and whoever has the most points wins. I think it's a super light worker placement game that's super portable, and I think everybody should check it out. Well, there you have it. I think this is a perfect entry point into worker placement. The game lasts 25 minutes, maybe 30, so you're in and out pretty quick. Super small footprint. It's also in a small box, so you could throw it in a bag, take it to game nights, conventions, what have you, as you're waiting around. whip out the game and start playing right away. Well, guys, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed taking a look at the game. I think it's an awesome entry into the world of worker placement, and you should check it out if you're interested. If you want, check me out on all the various social media, on YouTube, and until next time, enjoy your day, guys.
Hi everyone, Luke from the Broken Meeple here again, and this is Board Game Approved, and today I'm looking at Terraforming Mars, now with added Doug Quaid. I don't like these corporations, give me 2 others. I am Helion, so give me heat. Heat and more heat. That's what I want. Lots of heat. Get your beep to Mars. It's all well and good having a nice shiny planet, but there's a lot of wasted space with all this black, the black space in the background. You could think they could put something in there. Unfortunately, they haven't quite got around to putting drafting in the game yet, which means you are going to have to deal with the standard rules. You think I'm the real Quaid? I am. The interface in the game can get a little bit frustrating at times. You want to find out about a card, you're not entirely certain where to find all the information on it. It's alright, but it's a little bit unintuitive. Literally all I am doing is heating up the planet. I'm just going to blow this place up and then get back in time for cornflakes. You can play this against the AI, although I have to confess the AI is not particularly difficult to beat in this game, and there's not much point having lots of AI. Or you can do what I'm doing here, which is just the solo challenge, where you have so many generations in order to get as many points as you can and effectively, succeed at terraforming Mars. It's not the quickest game in the world. I feel like I've been playing this for at least 2 weeks. I wish there was maybe a bit more going on in the animations and that. There's not a huge amount. The map pretty much just does what it does and rotates a little bit when you move the map. The cards are fixed. You've got this weird shifting little symbol going across it, and it's just stock photo. One thing with this game, there's a lot of bugs. A lot of the times it just seems to get the rules confused. I've placed 3 oceans, but it won't let me actually use the card. And I've come across other similar bugs where it gets rules wrong, sometimes for your benefit. It's almost like, bank error in your favor, or screw you, I'm not letting you play this card. So I have to click on it twice in order to get the bugs to not work? Come on. It's just like the normal game. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So overall, it's not a bad port per se, but it's got a lot of bugs. It is constantly getting rules and certain things like that wrong. It goes on forever. For a game that's meant to be relatively quick, it does tend to drag a fair bit as you're going through. There's no drafting yet, which means you don't get the actual proper way to play this game. It's just kind of average, really. It's alright. If you love the game, you'll probably like this as well. But I think most people who play Terraforming Mars love the fact you can draft. So maybe you might want to give this a little while and wait for that to be implemented before you return to this game. See you on the next Board Game Approved. And remember, as always, it's only a game. See you at the party, Richter!
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. As one of the games that got me into the world of hobby gaming, I was stoked when I saw an app version emerge. Does the digital version of Quarto live up to my love of the physical game? Let's take a look. Originally released in 1991, Quarto is an incredibly simple 2-player abstract game in which the goal is to be the player to place the piece that completes a line of 4 pieces in a row that share a single trait. Each piece has a mix of traits. They're tall or short, light or dark, square or circle, and solid or hollow. Line up 4 pieces that share any single trait and you win. The biggest twist in Quarto is that you choose the piece that your opponent places and vice versa. And that formula gets enhanced because you can add in different completion patterns too. The Quarto app is simple but polished. It leverages a 3D perspective that's kind of necessary to allow for the piece height to display. A slider toggle on the screen allows you to rotate the board, and I find that this works really well. Interacting with the pieces and board is very intuitive, and overall the app is easy to use. And Asmodee Digital added in a bunch of extra features to make the Quarto app shine. Not only are there 3 different levels of AI, you also have the ability to customize the game rules to add complexity and variety. This is a very cool feature that I am so glad it's included. On the other hand, while on-screen notes always let you know whose turn it is and what action you should be taking, the app does not include rules or tutorial, which I was disappointed by. Thankfully, the game is incredibly simple rules speaking, and it's very easy to quickly pick up on. And there's even a challenge mode that they added. Each round you're given a goal to complete, and the game even switches up the basic rules to make those goals more challenging to achieve. It's a really nice extra to have. Quarto is one of those abstract games that's easy for just about anyone to learn, but can provide a really compelling and quick game experience. The app does a fine job of bringing that experience to life, especially in pass and play and challenge modes, and I recommend you give it a try.
Hey guys, my name's Nick, and I'm here to talk about mental health and its effect on the board gaming community here in Mental Health Minute. Hype. It's a big topic recently, and a lot of people are going on about hype and the hype train, and if it's worth buying into for games like Scythe, Gloomhaven, Seventh Continent, things like that. And the answer to that question for me is yes. And why? Because hype works for people. Hype is the process that your brain gets excited and detailed and knows that you're not getting the product yet, so you get more excited and excited and excited and excited about it until it finally arrives. Is there a chance that you're going to get disappointed? Yes. But that feeling is also valid. You get disappointed by the game, you finally whip it out of the box and put it on the table and it deflates you. And that's okay. How do we come back from that feeling? Well, we have a bunch of games available to really put us back in the right mood. That's the best part about this hobby that we all love. If you're somebody who doesn't want to buy into the hype, oh, they only like that game because they bought into the hype, that's great. You don't have to. I would encourage you to not put others down for buying into said hype, though, because that feeling for them is worth it. The potential of feeling amazing when their serotonin levels increase and they get that game and they feel satisfied. Have you ever felt disappointed by a game that you were hyped up about? Or have you felt that you hyped up a game and it was worth the hype, every second of the hype? Let me know in the comments, because I bet that you have something of each category. So, once again, my name's Nick, and thank you for your Mental Health Minute. Do enjoy.
Once a year, about this time, I do a board game breakfast segment that's about a convention in Harrogate called AirCon. That is now. That's happening now. I'm doing that segment. This is what you're about to witness if you stick around. AirCon this year is on March 8th to March 10th. It's in Harrogate. It's at the Harrogate Convention Centre. Now, I know that doesn't appeal to everybody, mainly because most people who watch this aren't in Britain. But the reason I like to talk about AirCon isn't because it's happening. I mean, I want as many people to go as possible, obviously. But I want to talk about why it's my favourite convention and what I love most about it. And I think I worked it out. And it's that people at AirCon aren't force-feeding you as much stuff as possible all the time. Buy this, buy everything, buy stuff. It's like being smacked in the face with a neon sign every 2 seconds. AirCon doesn't have that. It feels more relaxed is the wrong word, because there's so much going on. But it feels so much less invasive. It doesn't feel like you're walking through one giant board game store where everyone's trying to vie for your attention. I mean, yes, of course, there are booths there, and I'm going to be interested in going to them, but that's not the whole point. Also, the bring and buy, which I can't stop myself from going into, because I'm addicted to bring and buys. I love it more than anything. I just love the idea of going to a board game convention that's actually about playing board games rather than buying board games. Because then, when you do buy a board game, which you will, you're still going to buy a board game. It just feels more natural. It doesn't feel like you're coerced into it a little bit.
That's it for another Board Game Breakfast, folks. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys soon. Check out all our live stuff that we're putting out on our show this week. And again, remember, if you can't watch it live, it's still there. You'll be able to go back and watch it later. We're working on making it better each time. We were able to switch pictures out last week, if you saw that. And so we're learning little tips and tricks to make our live streaming better. Of course, it's live, so there's always going to be quirks and things that go into it. But our goal is to constantly be improving it, and we got some ideas and things for the future, and I'm really excited about them. Our second video editor is going to be joining us in March, and so when that happens, you will hopefully even see even more improvement, as one person's not going to have to handle everything. We'll have multiple things going on at one time. It's exciting. I'm excited for the future, and I'm also glad that you took the time to watch Board Game Breakfast today. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool Stuff, in stock, at coolstuffinc.com.